Warm, responsive and trusting relationships between children and educators provide a secure base from which children can explore and learn about themselves and their world. Through significant relationships like these, children are supported to develop their social and emotional capabilities.
Educators play a very big role in promoting children's social and emotional development and learning. The first thing that comes to mind is through the relationships that they develop with children that start from the very first encounter they have with families and children. And we know from the attachment literature on good practice in early childhood settings that the foundation for children's development and learning is having those warm, positive, mutually respectful attachment relationships with at least a few other adults. And obviously that's most important for children to have with their parents or carers. But it's just as important when they come into an early childhood education and care service that priority is given to helping that child form strong, positive relationships with adults. So, and starting off with one in particular.
Relationships serve many, many purposes for children. They are opportunities for children to grow and explore. They're platforms for children to spring from. They're places where children can be vulnerable and explore some of the difficulties. They're places where children can demonstrate, distress and build resilience. I don't believe children can do any of those things unless they're in significant, safe relationships that are unconditional, purposeful, intentional, and really meaningful to children. What we do with our work in early childhood when children are very little has far-reaching, significant long-term effects on children's capacity to be content and build relationships and grow and flourish.
When children are feeling safe and secure in the world and in their relationships with others, we can see that they're generally happy to go off and explore. And that can be in whatever age-appropriate way that they do. So for a very small baby, it might be to look at a dangling toy for a while. For a 4-year-old, it might be climb on the climbing gym and hang upside down for a while. At some point, the child will usually come back for a check-in, make sure you're still there.
Being in a safe, secure, nurturing relationship does prepare you for being in other relationships. So it gives the child an opportunity to understand the give and take in a relationship and the benefits of that. It gives the child an opportunity to satisfactorily resolve conflict with another person. It gives the child an opportunity to feel valued and important within relationships and important to other people. It helps the child focus, so being with other people does help with concentration and attention. And whatever their experience is, if they've had a very good experience of secure, loving, responsive care, they're much more likely to be able to provide that to another person in the future.
I believe children need to be in very secure, understood relationships to learn. The relationship is the learning for children. The relationship's like a room that a child walks into, and there's lots of really interesting things going on in that room that they can participate in and experience. And there's a very clear boundary. The room has enough room for that child to explore and do wonderful things, but they know that there's a boundary. So they feel safe enough to actually go and wander around and look at all the different experiences in that room. That's how I kind of feel really good relationships with children offer them opportunities to do those things. And they can do things in their own way in that room, but there is a bit of containment and a sense of interest and excitement.
Children really benefit from being thought about really closely, not only by their parents, but by childhood educators and by carers, and by that I mean grandparents and aunts and uncles and whoever. It's really important for children that someone is really trying to work out what's going on with them. And what we talk about really is being in tune with a child. And when you're in tune with a child, you'll be able to pick up things that they might not be saying. You'll get a sense of what's going on, and then you'll be able to act accordingly. Sometimes we'll get it wrong, but children really need to be knowing that their carers are thinking about them and keeping them in mind. And so one of the things that we see with when you're in tune with a child is you mirror their facial expressions. So you've got a baby who's crying and everybody will basically do the same thing, and they'll form a face that goes, "Oh, poor baby." And the baby can then see that you can see and understand how they're feeling. And this is what we talk about as being in tune. So the baby's crying and you've got this really sad face on and you're comforting the baby, and eventually the two of you will calm down together, and that's a way that we help each other manage our feelings.
And we think about the consistent caregiver as the parent, but obviously in the area of early childhood education and care, the workers there can also be the consistent caregiver, and is also vital for providing that repeated experience of having an adult that cares about them, that's going to protect them, that's going to be interested in them, that thinks they're valuable enough to kind of keep an eye on, so that they can therefore set off from that space of security to explore and learn.
Children need intention and purpose. They need to have an understanding of what's going to happen to them when they walk into a door. So predictability. I think it's very important for children to have a primary carer in an early years setting. One person who is responsible for the care of that child throughout the time that they spend in the early childhood setting. Now that doesn't mean that person looks after them all the time. It means that person holds them in mind all the time and is aware of where they are and who they're with, and may take them to other people for care and activity and experience, but will say, "I'm dropping you off and I'll pick you up in a bit." So the children have a really strong sense of being held in mind by an educator. So when children walk in the door in the morning, I think it's really useful for them to have the same person greeting them, and for that person to be saying things like, "I've been waiting for you to come and I'm really glad you're here." And the children know that what's going to happen next and what's going to happen next. If that happens regularly for children, like every day, I don't mean twice a week, I mean like 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, the children can hold that notion in mind and start to put themselves into that space wholly and fully, because they are held and they understand that it's their space.